salvation, personal holiness, works of what John Wesley would call works of piety. Works of piety meaning prayer and worship and Bible reading and those sorts of things, those activities, those rituals that we involve ourselves in, but to secure our relationship with God and to build our relationship with God. Those are important, but also works of mercy and works of justice. And these works of mercy, this personal and then this social holiness, especially these works of mercy, are our relationship and how we treat one another. And really the essence of this holiness with one another and other people is based on one simple rule that you've all heard since you were a little child, probably, called the Golden Rule. The Golden Rule. How should we treat other people? We treat other people the way we want to be treated, right? We treat other people the way we want to be treated. So in this way, we try to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. We try to put ourselves in the other. Would I want someone to treat me the way I'm treating this particular person right now? So the Golden Rule is at the heart of this social holiness. And when Micah is talking about justice, he's talking about social justice. Social in terms of our relationship with other people. Now, contrary to maybe what has become popular belief in the last couple of years, social justice is not a bad term. It is not a bad word. Social justice is not always, it can be, just like any other theological term or biblical concept, it can be distorted and twisted to serve some other agenda, no doubt. We human beings are very good at twisting and distorting Scripture and biblical and theological concepts all the time. But social justice has to do with the way in which we treat other people, and the Golden Rule is at the heart. How do I want my relationships to be with other people? How do our actions and our choices, we have to think about how do my actions and how do my choices, how does my particular way of life affect someone else? Now we can go by the rule, well, as long as nobody gets hurt immediately, it's no big deal. As long as for instance, a drug dealer, for example, can say, well, I'm just providing something that people want. But with no regard for what happens in people's lives. I remember a man that he grew up the road from us, and he was older than I am, but I remember, I was just so shocked that he got caught dealing drugs to middle school or junior high school students right across the street from where he lived. He had no regard for how his actions would affect the lives of other people. He only thought about how it could pad and enrich his own pocketbook. So we have to think about, how do my actions affect other people? For example, I can make a lot of money, and there's nothing wrong with me making a lot of money, but if I have to make a lot of money at the expense of other people and treating other people as if they are scum or animals or worse, then that's not a good way to make a lot of money. If I can make money and still treat other people pretty well, that's one thing. Now, the past couple of weeks, we've seen what's transpired in Egypt, right? We've seen what's transpired. What we have learned from this is that this dictator of 30 years, he, over the course of his time as a dictator in Egypt, amassed billions and billions of dollars in Swiss bank accounts, while his people that he was responsible for Governors and leaders of nations and leaders of peoples are responsible for the well-being and the welfare of their people. He amassed billions and billions of dollars while he had people living on less than $1 a day. That's called social injustice. That's called making wealth and building wealth on the backs of other people. And that's social injustice. And that's what Micah condemns. First of all, in Micah chapter 2, he says, "Woe to those who plan iniquity, those who plot evil on their beds. At morning's light they carry it out because it is in their power to do it. They covet fields and seize them, and houses and take them. They defraud people of their homes, and they rob them of their inheritance." So, at the heart of biblical ethics is this notion that there is private property rights. People have the right to their property, their belongings. You can't make sense of even the Ten Commandments without this basic understanding of the rights of individuals to own property. Okay? So here Micah is condemning people who scheme and plan and plot to be able to seize other people's property, to swindle them out of it if they can. In chapter 6, he talks about those businessmen who use deceptive practices to fool people out of their wealth and out of their hard-earned living. They use deceptive practices, false weights and false balances. And this happens all the time in our society and in our culture. A society based on lies and deception cannot stand and will not stand. A society based on lies and deceptions will eventually fall and come into ruin. And the prophets have all warned, the prophets of the Old Testament had all warned their rulers and their people that this was what was going to happen. I think about the story of Ahab and his wife named Jezebel. Pretty remarkable characters in the book of Kings. There was a man named Naboth who owned a vineyard. It was his private property. And the governor at this time, the king of the land, the government decided, "I want that property." Ahab said, "I want that vineyard." So he makes Naboth an offer. Naboth says, "I don't want to sell it. I want to keep my property in my family." Ahab goes home all depressed and sad, and he tells his wife Jezebel. Well, she consoles him and tells him to pull your upper lip in, we're going to be okay, because I'm going to devise a plan. And basically, to make a longer story shorter, she set Naboth up and had him murdered, and they seized his property and they seized his land. He was murdered. So this is kind of what Micah is talking about. And he is confronting corrupt business practices, and then next in chapter 3 he confronts corrupt government practices. When government and big business and corrupt business people collude, and when government officials and judges begin to take bribes, we call it, what do we call it now? We got a nicer word for bribery. I think we call it lobbying or something, right? That's what we just call it lobbying instead of bribery. Where government officials from certain wealthy business owners or landowners would come and bribe judges to make judgments in their favor against the poor and the powerless, to steal and to seize property from widows and orphans and those who were on the margins, who were barely getting by. So government and business began to collude. When government starts making decisions based on what's in the best interest of the lobby group that's giving the most money, then we've got some serious, serious problems. Or whatever union has supported their campaign, or whatever the case may be. You don't make laws that are in favoritism towards one group at the expense of others. What's good for one group should be good for every group. There shouldn't